Alaikum, Nadia.
Walaikum salam, Daria. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I'm just gonna try and so you can see my face.
Yes, you can. Hi. My God, after so long.
Yeah.
We never
Hi.
do face to face.
No, only.
Yes. Okay, so I think we will start now.
Mhm.
And so, I do want to thank everyone who's joining us. I mean, at such a short notice, because we changed our timing from yesterday to today. So today, we will be discussing a very, very important topic, which I believe should have been discussed like maybe 10 years ago, but I think better late than never. So we will be speaking about the conflict and the wars and the unstable political situation in our world and the impact it is having on the mental health of people. So, I mean, as Daria, there are 2 billion people living living under conflict, and the post-pandemic and during the pandemic, the conflict did escalate in many parts of the world. And, today we are joined by you because, you are part of this, what has happened in the world. You were in Ukraine, sorry, you were in Russia and Ukraine, and you had to migrate because of the war situation. So I really want to thank you, for being here and sharing your experience with us. And it will be very, very helpful for the people. And I will also be speaking a bit about, eating disorders, but mainly this whole session is about you, Daria. It's about, creating awareness about the mental health, and eating disorders also come under the category of the mental health illnesses as well. And, they do, I mean, a bit about the eating disorders, they do occur due to underlying causes including low self-esteem, and mental health disorders or a past history of trauma or neglect. So with eating disorders also comes many other problems which many people can also relate to, like anxiety, insomnia, depression, and agoraphobia as well to some extent. But I really wanted to share, but that also the political situations and the conflicts, they can also really make your eating disorder worse. It really has a profound impact on your disordered eating and your eating habits. So this is something we will be talking about today as well. And so just that the since the pandemic, unfortunately, the eating disorders have the number has really gone up, and this is according to the Royal College of Psychiatrists in Scotland. So I mean, we'll start, and the number of the young people, it's mainly the number of young people, where the number has really gone up. And traumatic life events are also the important factors which contribute to the eating disorder. So we will be speaking to you, Daria, soon. And just to say that from Ukraine to Yemen, the conflict is taking a devastating toll. Nuclear arsenals are swelling and conflict is on the rise. Millions are displaced. International law is disregarded with the impunity as criminal and terrorist networks profit from the division and violence. This is the situation the world unfortunately finds itself in today. And we all know the reason for the outbreak of the conflict. So Daria, thank you so much. I mean, I really thank you for doing this with us. We are very grateful to you for your time, because I know your time is quite limited. So Daria, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Daria. I'm from Russia. For the past more than a year, I live in Germany, and it's because we moved to Germany because we lived in Ukraine for some time, after living in many countries because my husband is a refugee. So, and we had to leave Ukraine last year because the war started. And here, I'm here to share the experience and answer questions, whatever you have, and hopefully it might be useful for people who are going through the same, or who would like to know more about the subject.
So, Daria, the war in Ukraine has, left many people across the world very shaken. I mean, I think this is the first, conflict, the Europe is experiencing in a very, very long time in the Europe. And it has had a profound impact on, on geopolitics of our world as well. And could you tell us about your experience of the war? Because this is first for you.
Mm. Yes, it was very difficult experience, of course, and we were living near Kiev, and we woke up from the explosions, which were near to our place, about let's say 2 kilometers away from us was the airport that was being bombed. And because our family is Russian, and couldn't really stay where we are. So many people decided to stay. Some people came from Eastern Ukraine, where the conflict's been since 2014, and so they said, okay, that's gonna happen only like for 2-3 days. They bomb us, but then nothing is gonna happen. But because we were being from international family, Russia and Ukraine, we had to leave straight away, and so we received the message from the kindergarten. I remember in the morning that there will be no kindergarten, the situation. And then we moved to a friend of us who lived like 5 kilometers away, because it would be not so close to the airport and to this main things which usually are being destroyed during the war. So if someone is going through the same, like, I would advise definitely to leave the place which is next to any military bases, any airports, anything, any infrastructure that that may be destroyed during the first hours. So we left, and then the next morning, when we saw that the conflict is probably gonna go further, so we decided to leave. And at this time was like a railway was already destroyed, and we had no car, so we had to walk from one city to another. And the cities were like already occupied, and we've decided to anyway to take a chance and just walk to the Kiev. And some people actually took us in the car, and so we managed to go to a different place. Actually, it was a Friday, I remember, and there was a Juma time, and it was the place actually which I always wanted to visit on a Juma prayer in Ukraine, in Kiev. And it was like, in this situation, we actually came to that place to make a prayer, and it was a feeling of fear and instability and everything, but at the same time you kind of feel that God is with you, and wherever you go, God will always be there, no matter what. So you're definitely not going anywhere where there is no Allah, where is no God, and all these circumstances that we've been in, that really showed me that in these situations God is closer to you than ever. And so we managed then to take a car and leave to central Ukraine, and further on to western Ukraine. We spent some time there in the masjid. We spent like 3 days there. And then we were able to leave Ukraine for the borders with almost no problems. And
I think, please go ahead, Daria.
please ask me. So, no, I also remember even a lot of messages from friends. To be honest, at this time, it was not really, it wasn't something I was expecting, and people were worrying, of course, but at the same time, I felt that they are more closed in their worries rather than actually they worry about me and the family, but they wanted me to tell them that everything is okay. Well, it wasn't. So I, try to put aside my phone and really think for ourselves, because a lot of people would tell me, oh, this is going on, this is going on, but actually they are not there. They don't know. And that's like I've had a kind of lesson that I need to listen at the moment only to myself, because it's only me in the situation and I know how to get out of this. And I receive kind of guidance from Allah, I guess, to what to do, because some people decide to stay, and this is also okay, I think, because everyone has a different path, you know. And I wouldn't say that everybody should leave. Everybody should probably get as much to as possible. Not, if they feeling that they have to stay, then they stay.
Daria, I remember your experience really, really well, because I was in Pakistan, and I was in the middle of leaving for. So I remember being there, and I remember that the journey you had was very, very difficult, because the reason, I could relate kind of to this situation was because, where I live, even though you are from, Ukraine and from Russia, but I think this was the first time when the war was really in they're out there for you. But whereas, with me, because I was born in UK, but I've lived in Pakistan for such a long time, and I saw the war in Afghanistan. I saw the migration, and I also saw some of the wars. Where my country was kind of part of, the Pakistan was. So I think, when your situation was happening, I wasn't expecting, but do you remember I said to you, it brought back so many memories, everything like kind of opened up for me because of my background in politics as well. And I always knew about the international conflict, and one of the things I used to work on was the resolution. But when you were the first person, Daria, I knew really, really closely, who was going through this, and it wasn't easy, just to see. And you're right, there were people messaging you. I was one of them, and we wanted to know, and it was like the mind cannot comprehend the reality of what someone is going through, and the journey they are making. As I said, one of the earliest experience uh, I have with this, when I went to I went for my dissertation to Pakistan, and we kind of had one of the it wasn't a conflict, but the city where it came under a lockdown by the military. And I still remember, Daria, only like 20 minutes from my house, we could hear the gunfire. There was a siege on one of the religious places, which was the mosque, and there were parents like waiting in the city to hear from the children, and they were not allowed to enter that domain. They were not, and it was so difficult. Can you imagine? We are in my house. I'm there to do my dissertation, and I can hear the gunshots. I know the city is under siege. We have no media. They're controlling the news which can get out of the Islamabad. And at the same time, there were really young children. They were really poor children who had traveled from different cities to be in the mosque. And I remember it really like it made me like I wasn't able to function, for such a long time, for the weeks, especially when I came to UK and I had more of an access to the news. It really, really, really had so much of an impact on me. And yes, and recently I remember being in Iraq, which was last year, as you know. And one of the things, Daria, I never ever thought I would remember. But as soon as I entered Iraq, and I was there for a religious pilgrimage, but you know what the first thing which came into my mind was the 2013 invasion of Iraq, and how, I didn't want the invasion to take place, because I was studying in UK at that time, and I thought, what, this is the country, which I live in, which is a torchbearer for their democracy and for the human rights, and which is, part of the Security Council. It was so difficult to see and witness. I mean, first the invasion of Afghanistan, and then subsequently the invasion of Iraq, and especially to be in Iraq, Daria, I saw the airport. I saw the catastrophe. I saw the impact, even though the war, took place in 2013, and the British Army, I think they left Iraq maybe last year. And it's still, I mean, the impact is there. It's the damage is so in your face. And I remember it really shook me up, and the only thing I could think of was, in 2013, how we went to the protest in London. I took my siblings out of the school, and, we went to the protest, and I was praying and praying and praying that, that the invasion will not happen, even in Afghanistan. And to go back to Pakistan, even now, Daria, to see those people, who come into our country, the visitors, the guests from Afghanistan. I don't want to call them refugees because I think they are guests, but just to see that, the Pakistan also played, some part in what has happened to the Afghanistan. It's so like, it just really, really, it really like, I don't know, it leaves you speechless, and it does leave you, with many, many sleepless nights. But, Daria, as you are in Western Europe now, you made a migration, and which was, I mean, not in your hands. But how did the war change things for you? I mean, I know your whole life is completely changed. You are away from your family as well, which is in Russia. But, personally, how it changed things for you. Please, could you tell us?
Thank you for telling me also about your experience, which is very important. Yes, I've had kind of the same feelings as well around the wars and around everything. But at some point, I've started to read the history, even, I've started to read the Quran and see more, and things like that have been there all the time. But now, of course, they are more devastating with all this weapons around, but that's been there all the time. That's been there. That's a nature. It's not something that is, wow, 21st century. But we stay as we are. We never change. We never really develop. It's the same. We've been, for the same loops of journey all the time. So things like that will also happen. It's the world we live in. It's not gonna change. It's not, I mean, we do have a specific time when everything is going to be changed, but then after that, everything is also going to go. So it's something that, we live with. It's not something that we should fight against, but it's something that we live with. I've decided like that. Maybe it's easier for me to digest all of this from that point. But I think that, yes, we may fight against it and everything, but that's a part of our past. It's a part, and it's a memory. It's my memory now, and I honor this memory in any way, no matter what I went through. you know so yeah. And how much I've changed, yes, I've touched the subject right now, how much I've changed, but unexpectedly it changed very much. It's been more than a year since the conflict. I think probably it's more the migration here without a real choice that really affected me. It brought up a lot of trauma. It actually helped me to deal with the trauma that's been underneath all the time, that I would never be aware of if I haven't gone through that experience. So, and when it came to the surface, it was easier to deal with. And I knew that, yes, of course, it was painful and difficult, but it was there, and there was a chance healing, through all of this. Yeah, so I'm still kind of grieving the time in Ukraine, because it was, like, for me, it really, like, the best country that I've lived in, and I've lived in many countries in the world. I've traveled a lot, and I lived in the UK, I lived in Ukraine and Turkey and Argentina and Russia, and and so to me, Ukraine was like my perfect choice because of the people, freedom there, and people, the tolerance of people is like really incredible. Even anything underneath there, there is no hypocrisy or anything. They just treat you, in the level you are. You don't feel anything behind. You don't feel anything, up front, of course. But it's people have this kind of freedom. Like what it's a freedom, and I think that probably we should
Yeah.
learn from them.
Daria, they do say home is home. I mean, we also, I mean, you were in Turkey, you lived in Turkey, and one of as people know, one of our work is since 2015 is with Syrian orphans and children, and with Yemen. These are I mean, we support everyone. Wherever there's a conflict, wherever there is anything, we try to help. But one of the first charitable work we started was with the Syrians, the children. And it's Daria, we both have been to Turkey. We have, we had a privileged opportunity, I would say, to be with the Syrian children and orphans and their families, to see the witness account, firsthand. And one of the things what you said about, and I really want to thank you for sharing your, how much you liked living in Ukraine, because one thing was. When we had visitors, guests from Afghanistan, and when Turkey received guests from Syria. One thing was, we wanted people, I mean, to adapt and come into the life of either Turkey or Pakistan. And it was only when I was with my website, and I saw there was a young girl who shared her story with me and her family, and how much they were grieving, leaving Syria. And there were really, really simple things, which the girl, I mean, she was only, I think at that time, 15, Daria. She shared really basic things like the sun, how the sun would shine, and how she would hear the noises, and how her relatives would be there, the security of the people. There was nothing to do with infrastructure, the development, or anything. It was all to do with the love and the light, which she had left behind, which she was really, really missing. And so that's the first thing. I mean, that's the first awareness, because I mean, I've never been in that situation, where I have a privilege of living in both countries, in UK and as well as Pakistan. So I always knew that, I can always go back to both countries. They both are home. But what you shared, it really is. I mean, people, Daria, as you know, even in Turkey, the Syrians, which are there, the poor people are like either migrating to Europe or anywhere, but somehow they love Syria, they love their home. For them, it's everything. And even with us in Pakistan, we recently saw influx of, people coming in from Afghanistan. And Daria, you are not going to believe. I mean, because, people were renting out their houses to them. It's like the grieving, you could really feel that how much they were grieving, and there is nothing in Afghanistan. It is, by God, one of the least developed countries in the world, but they loved it. They said they simply love. They said, where you come from, that earth calls you. So I see that this transition is very, very difficult, and it really impacts people. And I never knew that it could have an impact on eating disorder till I covered, a couple of the stories. And one of them was from, from the Syria as well. And this girl, she was really grieving, leaving Syria. And, even though she moved to Spain, but she still, every day she was feeling the impact. She just couldn't seem to adapt and, and embrace everything. She said, somehow the things would come back to her. So yeah. And I mean, but how was your experience of meeting? I mean, at that time, Ukraine was a very safe country, and you were a traveler of meeting the Syrian refugees in Turkey. Yeah, because my life changed, Daria, in 2015. If it was one thing which really changed my life was, when I was in Turkey and I met those people, it really changed my life 360 degrees, and I became a very different person. But and especially when it comes to my eating disorder, if it wasn't for that trip, 2015 trip to Turkey, and then going to Gaziantep and all those places in Urfa, I don't think so. I would have I would have found a courage in myself to battle this illness and to get on top of this illness. So I mean, if you could please share your experience of being in Turkey and meeting some of them.
Now I want to hear about your experience of fighting the illness. And yes, I'm going to share this experience, but that made me very interested in fighting. How did you decide to really fight, and how was your experience? I'm sorry to ask you.
No, no, no. I mean, I will be very honest. I mean, I have written about this. Before 2015, I had given up. I really had given up. Because I relapsed, and it was so. Even though mentally I was functioning because I was, part of the. I had like really gone into the religion, in Islam, and once I started seeing Islam, like even now recently, this last year was so difficult, Daria, from Palestine to, Sudan. When I was in February, sorry, I was in Saudi Arabia in March, April, and I remember I got the news about Sudan. And it was so difficult for me because you know why? There was a mother and her two sons who were in Turkey. They left Sudan, not because of a choice, because they had to leave Sudan. And then her husband was going to come and see her on the Eid day. And guess what? The conflict broke out and everything shut down, the airspace, airport. And now this mother and her sons are waiting for the husband. And for me to hear about that while I was in Medina was so difficult. And then while I was in the mosque in Medina, I saw people from Sudan. And all I could say to them was, please pray for Sudan, and we will pray for Sudan. Please pray for Pakistan. It's something which united us. So how it changed me, Daria, I think you met little Muhammad as well, who lost his legs in Aleppo in the bombing. When I met that little boy and I saw the strength within him, he had no legs, yeah, but he was so brave in himself and he was so happy, And when I heard the first account of that family suffering, how the father had to lift Muhammad in his arms and walk to Istanbul, and how, they were, what that family went through. I haven't been through that, I mean, what they lost, Muhammad lost the little boy lost his twin brother and his mother. He woke up and there was no mother, and, then they came and, for them to rebuild their life, to be in the moment, to go forward. Muhammad's father got married again and he's got excellent wife, and, and for them, and, Daria, I mean, I lost nothing, but for him to lose his legs, a physical reminder of the war, which is which is on his body, not just the mental health, but his legs. And when I saw the strength in him, and then when I was in Istanbul and I met these really young girls, no brothers, no fathers, only really elderly grandfathers, and these people, and the strength for them to offer the gratitude to God, to Allah, to be grateful, because they said, and one thing, Daria, which one of them said to me was so profound. This woman, I was with Sister Layla, you know her, you've met her as well. So basically, guys, Sister Layla is the lady, who basically, when we go to Istanbul, she used to help me and Daria if we wanted to go and see the Syrian refugees and orphans. I was with her in one family home, and this woman came running and she was crying, and she said, I just lost my husband and son. They are shaheed, meaning they are martyrs. And then when she was there, she was speaking about her country, and she said, what? I don't find any evidence anywhere in Islam about these kind of atrocities, She said they are not part of the religion. They're not part of any religion. So these people who are doing bad are self-elected, self-elected people to do the bad. And it really stayed with me. She said, this is not, the normal people, She said, Islam is very clear about what you have to do. The Quran is very clear. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, even in the time of wars, the example he set in his people, mercy, forgiveness, tolerance, and not attacking women. And the war was the last, the last option. No, none of the wars were took place, because of any other reasons. They took place because it was, it was simply the last thing. It was, when the Muslims were attacked or something like that happened. So when she spoke about that, and she spoke about those perpetrators and those mass murderers, people who killed, and she said, no. She said, these are the people who chose to do that because they know what the right thing to do is. And she said, the right thing to do is not to do any of this. So when she, shared that with me, I thought to myself, she just walked in, Daria, and she's just telling me that she lost her husband and her son, and she's telling me that they are martyrs, and she's telling me about gratitude, and she's telling me that the people who are doing this have chosen to do this, because everybody knows what the right thing to do is and what the wrong thing to do is. And she said she simply had to go forward. Yes, you know why? Because there were responsibilities, and she said the life doesn't come to an end. And then she did speak about, and then there was a verse, I mean, recently, Daria, because the things are so difficult in Pakistan, and it's so heartbreaking when I have to speak to people, even in, when I get the message from the Palestine and, or, from Sudan or Niger, Mali, even Somaliland and Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and it's very, very difficult to give people comforting words. But I always say to them, there is a verse in, Surah Al-Imran, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, and people were really crying, they were really, really upset. And, Allah said, he was nothing but a prophet, like the prophets which came before him. So the instruction was for us to go on, because the death is there to protect the life, It's a part of, the process. And everyone, whether you're a prophet or whether you are, anyone, they have to go through this. So for me, honestly, Daria, it was meeting those families and really feeling guilty within myself that what am I doing with my life, and that's what, made me really like pull out. I started fighting it, and I thought to myself, no one has a right over my mind. So yes, sorry, I had to, bring a few things in to, yes.
Thank you. No.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how was the journey upwards when you've decided to fight your illness? How was it for you? Was it really difficult? And how did you cope?
I will be very honest with you, Daria, because I wasn't a religious person before my eating disorder was diagnosed, I wasn't, I knew that I'm a Muslim, and I was very happy that I have an identity, because, I lived in West, and, there was no way in the UK that I fitted in, there was no way. So, when I knew that I have an identity of being a Muslim, I have a religion, and then I have a cultural identity, which is Pakistani, I was very happy. It gave me identity, and I felt, even in this, diverse society, I fit in, because I wasn't a British, because I wasn't white to be a British, and my family was different. But all of a sudden, I had an identity. So, when this whole thing happened, it made me sure of myself who I am, especially with the mind. I mean, I had a huge anxiety problem. So much anxiety, Daria, that I was unable, to leave my house. I would be thinking to myself, like even in 2014 and 15, I would be making the decision to leave my house, and it would take me the full day to leave my house. And even do the simple things, I would be thinking and overthinking, and sleep was a big problem. Even when I was in a hospital, one of the things they failed to treat was my sleep. Can you imagine when you can't sleep, and your mind, like 3 days would go by and I wasn't sleeping, and there was no solution. I mean, the medication I was on wasn't working, and then I left all the medication, I left everything, to get well. But 2015, I would say, was a very, very not a mentally low point, because mentally I was very strong, I was aware, but like physically very low point, because my whole illness came back. So the reason, I mean, the journey was very, very strong, because I became more aware of what was in my mind, and the anxiety disappeared. I started sleeping really, really well. I would sleep and I would wake up for my prayers. I mean, the prayers and the Quran became the integral part of my life, because this is, the only thing which made sense to me. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the answers by the governments didn't make sense to me. There was no justification for the wars. No war, I mean, was justifiable. Even in 2011, when Libya was attacked, I thought to myself, and the country I live in was part of it. I thought to myself, there is no way. None of this is justifiable. So, for me, the journey was, I started getting strong in myself. I started looking for the answers. I stopped looking at people for the answers. Like what you said, when you were traveling from, to leaving Ukraine, and people were messaging you and you were getting news, but you thought, no, this is about me. This is about my journey. This is about, what I know. And this is where you got your strength to make that journey. It was same with me, Daria. I had to do my own research, especially with the Quran. I needed the answers. And I always, knew about the conflict. As you said, this has always been the part of the history. And one of the first thing was when 9/11 happened, I needed the answers. Even before 9/11, I wanted the answers. And, I really went through the whole of Islamic history, studied all the wars and everything to get the answers. So I had some answers, but once I went through the whole illness myself, I thought, my God, I need to fight this war. I need to get strong. And that's when, the answers, came from the Quran. Like right now, when people were really, really, really upset, about what happened in Pakistan, what happened in Afghanistan. And the reason, Daria, I would say the Afghanistan is very difficult because there was a blame game going on. And, one of the blame game was someone said to me that, but, you guys were part of what happened in Afghanistan. You cannot say you were not part of it. It really shocked me, because and then they said to me that, and then someone from Bangladesh once said to me, but what happened in Bangladesh, which was the 1971 war, your country played part. And then there was Kashmir. And I thought to myself, are we really responsible, for what has happened? And then I thought to myself, and I said to them, I said, look, the people who chose to do what they did in Afghanistan from my country, this is the decision they made. I said, Allah is very, very clear. Allah said, you are all one, with my mercy, you were enemies before. This is a verse in Surah Al-Imran. You became brother and sister. So do not be divided, and we will get the diversity. And under no way, Daria, any of this is allowed. This mass murder, these genocides, these wars, there is absolutely no justification. And especially to treat people in a human way is not justifiable. So, for me, that's, this is, the answer I give now. I said, look, I don't believe in any of this. Yeah. I would never make this decision. Yeah. And I said, the people who have made this decision, they knew what the right thing was and what the wrong thing was. This is what they have done, and they will be responsible. I mean, there is no way international law is going to come in and, question the people who invaded Iraq. That's never going to happen in a zillion years. There is no way, So, we really have to step in ourselves and do the right thing. I can't, change, what the people who decided to what they did in Afghanistan from my country. I cannot do anything about what they did in Guantanamo, how they contributed to the evilness in Guantanamo Bay and all these other prisons, the man-made prisons. But what I can do is really do the right thing, Daria, which is help the fellow people who do come into my country, to Pakistan, show the mercy, the compassion, do as much as you can for them, to make them feel that we are one, and these people who are doing all the atrocities and all the evil, they're not part of us, because they know what the right thing is and what the wrong thing is. So this is how I got better. Also I felt a lot of responsibility, with the Syrians in Turkey. Honestly, Daria, I felt a lot of responsibility in every year. And you want to know about the trauma. One of the things was, Daria, I traveled with the 2015 with what happened to those people. Every year, 2016, 2017, 2018 till 2019, I would break down. In December, I would really have a mental meltdown and a breakdown where I would sit in my room, yeah, and I would cry because everything would come back. I would remember, my travels in Turkey, I would remember, and I would remember every single war because I studied the politics of, mass murder, one of my, and, everything I would remember. And then in 2020, when the lockdown and everything happened, and, the journey of the Quran and Islam is ongoing. So every year, even now, Daria, I'm trying to, get better, like for what happened in Pakistan. People were so upset. They said, Nadia, we finally had a hope. We finally, especially the younger generation, 800,000 people left Pakistan last year, Daria. You know, so 1 million people have left Pakistan, brain drain. So, when they speak to me and, and I have to give them the answers, I can never say, when someone is telling me my family is in the conflict, I can't say, no, have a patience, everything is going to be okay. So I think I just tell them, we are one, we will do everything to support each other. And, our aim is to do the right thing, This is what we will be questioned on, Daria, not, what, these leaders did. I didn't elect anyone in this country, so I don't think so, I'm part of that, I didn't elect the people who went out of the way to do what they did in Afghanistan or what they did in Waziristan and the other areas of Pakistan. This is the decision they made. They self-elected. These are the people who are self-elected. Self-appointed to do the bad things. We are not like that. So this is even now, Daria. Even in this situation, when even I had so many hopes about Pakistan. I migrated last year, and all of a sudden the situation has changed. The instability, and I can never say it doesn't impact me because the people who are there, they speak about it. You feel it, Daria. The economic crisis and everything. So this is what makes me better. Every time I open the Quran and I think about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I said, what would he do? In these economic crises, and then I get my answer. There was a famine. There was a economic crisis in his time. There were wars in his time, and for them, one of the greatest resolution was to go for the peace. And then I think about his people, like Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Osman. What would they do? Did they do what these people are doing now? And the answer is no, Daria. None of them did what these people are doing. What is happening in Syria? There is no way, if Prophet Muhammad was alive in today's time, him or Hazrat Umar or Hazrat Abu Bakr would do any of this. So this is, where my strength comes in, that, Allah has given us the guidance, which is in the Quran. Every single answer is there, even about the mental health. When people say, when you feel an anxiety, you feel anxious. I did feel a lot of an anxiety with what was happening in Pakistan. And someone said to me, please don't think this is a sign of weakness, because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once felt so much heaviness on his chest. He said there was so much weight on his chest and on his mind that he thought something to go on the mountain and and jump, and then Allah sent Surah Duha, you know. So he gave, and the reason we were given that example, because yes, we are very normal human beings. We will be impacted, by all of this, If you don't feel, if you think, oh, I don't look at, it doesn't impact me, then I'm sorry to say, you are living in a surreal world. You need to feel these people because we need to help them, we need to come together. And say, Daria, I'll give you an example of, people from Afghanistan, when you meet them as your fellow brothers, they would never say, question you, they would never blame you for what has happened, They know that the people who are doing the bad are not the normal people, So there's a clear distinction between the good people and the bad people. So this is what makes me go forward. I'm like, no, there is no way I'm part of the system. What I can do is do as much good as I can because I have a very short life, and yes, I am allowed to grieve. I do grieve. Honestly, my emotions come in. I do feel anger because these are natural emotions, but I celebrate my emotions. I go through with them. I acknowledge them. And this is how I go forward.
Okay, give me just 1 second. I'll be.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's okay.
My son. I mixed up.
Yes.
It's when I'm so I'm.
Yeah. So Daria, we are, I mean, I didn't think, but, we in 15 minutes we will be coming to an end. So, I mean, Daria, tell me, about, your, I mean, I mean, one thing, I will give you an example of the people, who send me the messages. I mean, I'm being very honest. One common thing people with eating disorders have is if, whether they're from Afghanistan, Iraq, or, any of these countries, immediately, when anything like this happens, the first thing which gets compromised is their eating, they simply feel unable to eat. And I have people, they will go consecutive days, without taking care of their mental health, their body, their mind, their nutrition. I mean, did you go through that, that did you feel your eating, your nutrition was compromised? Because, we have to take care of our body, our body is a temple, and it's connected with our emotional health and everything. So can you please tell us a bit about that, how it was, and also you're a Muslim, and when you did migrate, was the your dietary needs met or no?
Mm. Yes, it was a difficult part of the journey. Even though we are Muslims, we can still have some vegetarian food here and there, and people are very kind to share. And they actually, even they are not Muslims, they can really offer you something. But the most difficult eating was in the German camps, where I think it was right after the COVID when they changed and they were packing the food in the containers. And this was not very healthy, I guess. But a lot of people didn't see it. Kids didn't see all this. I don't know whether there was any degree case. But yeah, that was the most difficult part. Actually hide my title or
So,
how to use.
Daria, you traveled with your son, to you left with your son. So, was he one of the motivating factors for you to, keep nourishing yourself, keep feeding yourself, because you knew you had an added responsibility, like this huge blessing. I wouldn't say, but responsibility as well.
Yes, I always feel that. We always feel that do, an extra mile to go extra for our kids. Yeah, I best. And the most important is to build the connections, and locals can really, really help you, with, uh, you know, I was not afraid to ask help. I was doing like maybe once a week, and I would cook in she became my friend in my friend's house. I couldn't kind of take off in the refugee camp. And it's Ramadan, sometimes people would really paint their husbands, so people standing in the there was no food available. And I don't know how actually survive in this situation with other, but um, we really tried, and I saw people going really at was trying to understand that the food was not possible, you know, to eat at all. And it's only in some places. And yeah, um, so yes, I had this relationship with my son, and you know, I would do things that were not allowed. For example, I would keep something kettle in the room to, boil the egg, and so and buy some food all the time because only food was trying to do something impossible to, um, to do something myself and eat more healthy. And, and I think I'll be back to think about in, in the circumstances that people in. I'm just feeling really bad for people who were not to do how I thought Afghanistan. They are really, That was something that, that it's not, I have, this is something that I have to learn from them. They've been in any situation that, and, mindset of, refugee. I'm not a victim mindset. When I saw the people be really grateful for what they are, it's also in me, and in people who've been really um and
You can hear him.
yeah. So I think the best part for me is that those people, they really showed me what to be really, you know, how to be and everything, because we are to the comfort, everything, and what I can see in people is the real strength.
Yeah. So, I mean, what Daria is explaining is about the impact the conflict can have on our eating as well. I mean, it's a natural thing. People do feel sometimes. I mean, obviously, we have to be mindful that not everything is going to be available. You have to make use of what is available and what is given to you. You cannot go and pick and choose. We'll go to the Whole Foods, or we'll go to the Walmart, or we will go to, this and that, and we will get our, pick our food. So, this is also one situation. But, one thing, I mean, recently, with the current situation, and honestly, Daria, I couldn't even keep up with the countries. If it was one country, then there was another. There was a Niger, and then just to hear the people, what they were going through, the pain. I mean, one thing I did say to someone. I mean, one thing I learned from my mother was, Daria, it doesn't matter, how tough life got. Yes, yes, because she's a mother of, my mother has 5, 6 children, and not all of us are living with her, but still, she had such, because she comes from the army background, she would wake up at a certain time in the morning, and they have to eat. I've never seen her in my life, skip breakfast, skip lunch, or dinner. These are the must. And and if you ask her, she said, this is what she needs to get through the day. This is her fuel. So this is how she sees it. And, this is something, I try to tell my people that, this is, one thing we really have to do. I mean, take care of not just our body, but, our nutrition, our spirituality, connect with Allah. These are the basic fundamentals of our daily life. And I don't think so. Daria, one thing we all hold on to, all of us, is in this time is spirituality, and making that connection, with Allah, and with the prayers, and taking some time out, like a me time, to do the meditation, and do the dhikr of Allah, to connect with the Quran. And even though this may seem very, very difficult at times, but it's something which you need to do for yourself, just to get the strength, because as you said, this the conflicts and war have been part of the of humanity ever since the creation of Prophet Adam alayhi salam, and it's still continuing, and it's still going on. But I think the only thing we can maybe take from this is that we are also very, very important. We didn't create this situation, but there is no way we can function without taking care of ourselves, and putting our well-being and mental health in front of everything, and then work together, united for the for the cause of goodness and the peace and prosperity, and going forward. This is how I see it. I don't think so that I don't distinguish between Yemen or Syria or Ukraine or anyone, because when Allah said we all are equal, so we all are equal. But I do think there is a responsibility, because I find it very difficult to say to people, but I'm not in Pakistan, it has nothing to do with me. I feel, yes, it has everything to do with me. And what I mean everything to do with me is that, I care about what is happening there. I do want peace. I want the prosperity. And I stand on the path of, which is haq, which is the right, and I always will. So this is, something I think, and I think supporting everyone, united is very, very important. So, Daria, we are really, I can't believe, I think I haven't even covered all the questions, but I wanted to ask you, the time is simply gone by. So, one thing, before we end, I mean, I know it's very difficult to watch the news, but, if I don't watch the news, but I still know what is happening because of my people. So, I mean, do limit the news if it's having an impact on your mental health, acknowledge the reality and importance of mental health. Turn to Allah and, remember Him, always remember, as Daria said, He is with you. It doesn't matter, while she was making that journey, she knew Allah was with her. And I have to acknowledge, Daria, you, as I know you, you are, always aware of your, body as well, and, your nutrition and everything. And, you were also aware of the spirituality as well. So before we end, Daria, please, you have to do the closing remarks, three tips, you would give to people, and the advice to the people who are going through this, and three tips, people who are going through this, unique experience of being in the conflict, and this is everywhere right now, Daria, so please, and then we will close the session.
I think that insecurity really keeps you closer to God. At the same time, I would tell people not to be afraid to leave everything behind, because they're not going anywhere. Also, to really, if there is any psychological help, go and explore it. If there is available, if you just talk to people as well. Also, then whatever is a challenge that you're going through, there will be an end to it. Promise God, but everything will end. And I would like to also finish this to ourselves, and we are able to go further ourselves, the children, houses, family, and also and people here. So I would really strongly suggest working yourself on this. If you're full, then you have to well, if you're not full, if you're just full, it's not. It's no. So I would just finish with words from my psychologist. So, because I would like, for me, it's important is really the moment to really feel about the everything. We feel really help, but we are not we go through this together. This nation is all the people in the world, and I choose not to be, will not also feature. And I will not give up on my life. And moment for the rest and healthy to go. And I choose also the and show love to all the people, and do everything that's the humanity in us. It's a moment. It's very look at the way not to open the heart. and and also the other words, the faces, and you can face and, and all these, and it's our responsibility to, to take care of our own lost lives. But once they will be able to talk to the king and in the moment, and you can act and and with your healing, you can laugh again, yes, and be happy. But of course, you be a different person.
Daria, thank you so much. We have come to the end, and I really want to thank you, Daria. And we will be sharing what Daria has said, with you as well, in writing as well, Daria, if that's okay. The tips you have given at the end, we will on inshallah be sharing that. So thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone who has joined us. If you need help, please contact us. Message us. We have some availability for the sessions, and so inshallah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daria. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for